So the profit as the primary purpose model, what's sometimes called the stockholder model, you criticize that, but you also equally criticize the stakeholder model. And what's your criticism of the idea that the purpose of business is to satisfy the interests of all relevant stakeholders?
That is my objection. The method of business is once you figure out, so it's to produce a good or service for trade. So you've figured out the good or service you want to offer. You want to be an accountant. You want to make widgets. You figured that out. That's what you want to do. So you're now doing that. You're now making the trades. The question is well, there are multiple decisions one has to make, both in the means of productions, where one's going to locate, who one's going to hire, and money is the method to make those decisions. What am I going to get if I invest in this? And it's a multi-attribute decision problem made on the basis of money. That's the key, as I said, methodology of business. Stakeholder theory says, no, if that's all you're taking into consideration, you're actually being immoral. I have to equally consider the interests of all my stakeholders. So if I make a decision, I have to consider the interests of the community, the interests of the workers, the interests of the consumers, the interests of the suppliers, the interests of, I'm probably missing one now, the stockholders actually count as well, or interests of the owners. It's mighty nice that they count sometimes, huh? And so I have to balance all their interests. Well, if it's not going to be money, then how do I balance it? And it turns out that it's a political decision process to balance it. So that notion of business ethics, I actually think, is antithetical to business ethics. It's political ethics.
So rather than relying on the narrow stockholder approach or the narrow stakeholder approach, right, as you're arguing here, we need to think more generically about the nature of business, which can come in many forms and serve many different purposes for different individuals. And so your definition of business as purpose-driven production of goods or services for the purpose of trade, that's where we should start. All right, so then on the positive side of business ethics, you say that this then generates a kind of a principled commitment that can come out in an ethos, right? That if you want to decide what it is to be a good business professional or what it is to commit to the best kind of business life, you think of what are the needs of the productive part of the business and what are the needs of satisfying the trade. So being committed to productivity, being committed to trade. That's how we should approach things. And then equally, this is toward the end of your discussion, you mentioned that serves as a principle for deciding what's unethical, right, in business. And even if we rule out the clear cases of crime, right, and so on, as not being part of business, how does your account of what business is help us deal with cases like discrimination, say, in the workforce, or the owner who uses the business as his personal piggy bank, and so on? How does it provide us as a guide in the negative cases?
Okay, and let me go back to the positive just briefly.
Okay,
I mean,
fair enough.
You remember, well, we're looking at us as human beings. The trading actually touches something within us, something that's very peaceful, something that's exciting, something that's social. Okay. That's important. Business can serve that because trading is a fundamental aspect of business. I'm producing a good or service for trade. Okay. So in general, business is a good thing. Now I have to decide specifically what I want to do within business. Right. This is a good way to live, but I don't live a way. There's something specific I have to do. I want to be an accountant. I want to be whatever. And so that funnels down. Now I've decided to be an accountant. Now I've decided that I want to make hamburgers. Now I've decided I want to sell whatever. Now I have specific obligations that go along with each of those. If I'm going to sell chicken, I have a specific obligation not to kill people with salmonella or kill people with E. coli. I have the specific obligations as I provide this on the market. Certain things I'm going to have to do. Right. So I think it's very action guiding in a good sense to tell me what ought I to focus on, that just making a profit doesn't, right, as I'm focusing on these productive activities. Now, to help me on the other side of when I've gone wrong, right, so what am I going to do right? Well, I'm going to focus on this the productive side and the trading side. But when I've gone wrong, I've stepped outside of this, right? And people will do self-justification all the time. It's my business, so I can discriminate, or it's my business, I can hire the secretary to sleep with. But that's precisely just self-justification. And why is it just self-justification? Because you have agreed and you have broadcast that I am in business. We have said that this is what business is, and now you're doing something entirely opposite. You don't get to have your cake and eat it too. You're either doing business or you're not. And if you're using it as your personal piggy bank, if you're using it as your personal sex playpen, if you're using it just to lord it over other people, you're not engaging in business, and I think you're violating the telos of it. I think you're doing something fundamentally wrong. And by the way, in the process of that, people say, well, so you're violating the goals. But remember what you're violating. You're violating this trading, right? So we've gone from a trading model to an authoritarian model, which doesn't serve flourishing the way that trading does. You're not being productive in this sense. You're actually probably being some sort of, I wish I could find a better term, but some sort of leech. You're actually sucking the productive abilities out of people.
Oh, okay, sure.
Or the company, all right? You're not engaged in this mutually productive trade anymore. Okay. So when I say you violate the goals or the ends of business, I mean, that has some very real effects, both on your own individual flourishing, but on the flourishing of those around you as well.
Okay. All right, so think of business as a principled calling in the context of a flourishing life, given the kinds of beings that we are. When you then enter into business, you're committing to productivity and trade. Take those seriously, right? Internalize them, and then also externalize them in the business and remain true to that.
Yes.
That's business as a noble calling.
And if you don't want to do that, then do something else.
Okay, fair enough. All right, thank you, Professor Kline.
Well, thank you.